to go. All right, welcome back. Another episode of Everything Jers. Got a special guest with us today, Hannah Rosenberg. I'm especially excited to talk to Hannah today. She's one of my favorite people to see posts for on Facebook. She's super divisive. I feel like there's always a lot of debates going on in her threads, and finally get to kind of hear a little bit more from her instead of all the people rambling on her pages. So how you doing today, Hannah?
I am pretty good, and I should note that I'm never trying to be divisive.
I'm just
thinking through things.
Sometimes I think you might be, not most of the time, but there's a couple where I think you're poking.
There's a couple of times where like I know I'm gonna kick up a shitstorm, but I do it anyhow. That's definitely happens, yes.
Yeah, but so I guess just to like explain a little bit, I have a few podcasts that I do. I kind of had a little bit of idea to do a new little series to kind of just meet a bunch of people that I'm connected with online that I don't really know too well. I kind of just interact a little bit here and there. So you're one of the people who is willing to volunteer. I know a little bit about you, but could you guys explain a little bit about Velas? Is that how you pronounce it? Commerce, and what you do, how Puerto Rico is?
Velas Commerce.
Velas Commerce, got it.
Yeah. So Velas Commerce is a business that I actually started about 6-7 years ago. Both side projects, and it's now been the full-time gig for about 2 years now. But basically, we're a dev team. We do crypto, Bitcoin, Lightning integrations. So, if someone has, some existing business, existing platform, and they're like, hey, this would be even cooler with Lightning. Who can help us with that? And that's us. That's what we do. We help people integrate Lightning and do a little consulting around that, and sometimes some educational projects as well. But that's the gig. Yeah.
I like it. How did you get into Bitcoin? Because it sounds like you were kind of in it a little bit early. I remember actually on one of my posts, you were bragging about how big your dick was.
Hey, you started that. I was just joking around with what you started.
No, I know, but I think you got involved in 2013. Is that right?
So I studied economics at UIC way back in the day. I have a degree in economics from UIC, and I got really interested in monetary theory and alternative currencies and stuff from that. And then actually wound up hearing about Bitcoin in 2011 from one of my favorite podcasts, econtalk.org. But I first heard about it, and I thought, like everyone else does, it's magic internet money bullshit backed by nothing, and so I totally dismissed it. But it wasn't until I really sat down, like it wouldn't go away in little circles that I was in, and so I sat down in mid 2012 to be like, okay, how does this thing actually work? And then I grasped the whole decentralization concept, and I was in love. And I've been in love ever since. Yeah.
And were you already experienced with development and computers, or did that kind of come after that?
So I'd been a tech nerd for pretty much most of my life, but right around that same time is when I was sort of transitioning into being a full-time tech nerd. I was actually in Australia, in a small town in Australia, busy starting a family. So literally just like sitting in front of the computer, nursing a baby. So that's what I was up to at that point in time. But shortly, right around that time is when I was transitioning into like doing the web dev stuff, as a profession rather than just a hobby. So I did that for quite a few years. Yeah.
So a company that wants to integrate Lightning Network, how exactly does that work? Would it be like if you have an e-commerce store, you can start accepting Bitcoin, or is there more to it than that?
No, that's basically it. So a number of use cases might be you have an e-commerce store and you want to accept payment via Bitcoin or Lightning. Another might be you have some sort of existing payments type platform and you want to add Lightning to it. Maybe you have a mobile application that has payments and you want to add Lightning as an option to that. All those sorts of things. We have a variety of clients with projects of that type. Yeah.
Nice. And then what I think, from what I know, Lightning is just faster. Is there anything else that makes it better instead of just accepting Bitcoin?
Well, it's sort of called a second layer on top of Bitcoin, and it is faster. So it enables scaling because you can just have, not everyone has to know about everything, which is the problem that prevents scaling on the main chain. But it's faster, it's cheaper, and there are some added privacy benefits. So
is it as secure then? or
It
it's just,
is, because a Lightning transaction is an entirely real, valid Bitcoin transaction. One of the analogies that if you're, my age, you would understand is like writing a check and giving it to someone, but they don't take it to the bank. Instead, you just like exchange checks back and forth. And so that check is entirely valid and you can take it to the bank anytime you want to. But we can also just keep exchanging them back and forth and pass them around between people we know, that type of stuff.
gotcha. You say your age, you're 21, right?
I am currently thinking about planning my 40th birthday party. So yeah.
All right, there we go. Planning early.
A little bit.
What's it called? So what's I guess two-part question. What's your favorite part of doing what you do? And then what's the most difficult part of doing what you do?
My favorite part of doing what I do is getting to take this like brand new technology, stuff that's like just been released, really cool stuff, and then find ways to apply it to real problems. When I get a client that's like, hey, we have this problem, and I'm like, wait, there's this new tool that just came out last week and we can help you with this using this tool. Like that's the coolest part, that sort of architecture when you get to take these cool new things to solve problems. The hardest part of anything is just seeing it through, actually getting it done, making sure that it actually really happens and that you do all of the boring stuff like testing it and documenting it and all of those things that need to happen. Those are just tedious, but incredibly important, and you got to do them. So.
Yeah, and I've also seen you comment a little bit about how you might take on too much work sometimes and just
I do.
Yeah, managing that workload. So how are you planning to kind of manage that?
So the solution is well known but heartbreaking, and it's very, very simple, where I have to say no to really awesome projects, even though they're really awesome. That is the solution. I know that's the solution. I get a little bit better at it. I still have a ways to go in mastering this skill, but yeah.
So are you going to choose projects based on like what will pay you more, or what's a better fit for you guys as a company, or what's just what you enjoy doing based on their project? How are you going to kind of choose that?
We came up with this really cool like a scoring mechanism to solve exactly this problem. And it's like,
nice.
Based off of money, right? Obviously things that pay well, because you have to pay your developers and keep the lights on and all that stuff.
Right.
Then a coolness score, right?
Coolness
so is
score.
It boring? Like it's like something with WordPress. Okay, we're going to do that. That's all right. Or is it like really cutting edge, lightning, awesome? So there's a coolness score. Then there's like a marquee value score. So is this really cool thing to talk about? Really interesting. And then there's just like the coolness of the people that you're working with. Are these really awesome people that I just want to work with and talk to every day? And so you kind of have those four things, and then you rate them, and then you come up with like an overall score. And that's the current method. Yes.
So have you used that method yet, or is that just in development and being ready to be used?
We have indeed used that method. Yes.
And it worked well?
So far it's working well. So far we're working on cool stuff and getting paid to do it and working with cool people. So yeah,
I like it.
Stuff.
All right, so now we're going to shift the conversation a little bit. I guess before we shift completely, we could preface it. Both of us are allowed to take back anything we say. No one can really judge us for what we're saying. Most of what we say are hypotheticals and thoughts. It doesn't necessarily mean what we believe in. But so I guess I enjoy a lot of your posts. I guess a big reason, because a lot of time it's very similar to things that I'm thinking. And there are things that you kind of can't say, or you usually can't really say it because people will judge you, cancel you before you can like even really explain yourself. They don't even really want to hear your explanation. So I guess a couple of the big ones might be, or one actually I was just talking randomly about an hour ago, was about like trans and kind of women not being or like the whole thing just being a little bit confusing, and how like some women might not see a trans person as being able to go into a woman's bathroom. So I guess what shifted, or were you always comfortable like bringing these things up, or what changed where you eventually were like, I just got to start voicing my opinion?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I think the motivation for me personally in talking about this stuff is that I spent a number of years working in places, and God, it's gotten weird where it's like the left has become the censorship team, where they were like, and it's weird because they're supposed to be like, I don't know, they go
Open,
around
inclusive.
preaching tolerance and inclusion, but no, they've gone completely the other way. And so I spent a lot of time, especially in some of the 9 to 5 jobs that I had a few years back, where very, very liberal workplace. And it was just like, you wind up feeling so closed in and you're just like terrified of speaking your mind or letting your guard down because I know what people are going to jump on me and I'm going to get in trouble, verbally jump on me, but I'm going to get in trouble. And so I think in some ways my just speaking my mind on Facebook is just my way of like releasing myself from that fear, because it's like, just get it. Let's just get this over with. If you're going to hate me for having this thought, let's just do it now.
Are
So
you
I don't
ever,
have to sit around waiting,
yeah. Are you ever willing to say those things in person, or do you kind of still keep quiet a little bit in person?
So in person, I definitely do, depending on the setting. So a lot of times thankfully, I've done a pretty good job of avoiding those settings where it's like, I feel like I have to be quiet or I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
Thankfully, I've managed to extricate myself from those, but it
Yeah.
is more difficult in person. And so it's like sometimes Facebook's like the training ground to learn how to say things appropriately in person. That's level 2.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you think things are getting better or worse as far as like the dialogue among, it's usually, I guess, the left and the right? Um, and I mean, for me, I personally feel like it's getting kind of farther and farther apart. And I don't know what a possible solution can kind of look like, because I like to think that I kind of started off on the left. I'm probably pretty in the middle now. And I like to think that I can at least have a dialogue with both sides. And wait, I think you posted this morning how like people get upset at you when you disagree. I like to think that I am one who can be in conversations and not get too upset. And like that's how you make progress, is just talking and kind of understanding the other side. Do you think that that's happening at all? Do you think it kind of you kind of talk
it's
amongst
it's
your
so
own people?
hard It's so hard to say. And I think maybe when I go back to Chicago over the holidays and sort of rejoin the real world in Chicago, I'll maybe
Yeah,
get a better perspective. Because I do tend to live in a little bubble here in Puerto Rico where it's like my family, the people I talk to online, and then like the crypto meetup. So I don't
right.
know if that's very representative of the rest of the world. But it did get horribly divisive. And it got to the point where it's like losing real friends and causing strain in family. And it really, really sucks. And
Yeah.
I really hope that what will come out of this is maybe, and what I actively look for is people that can disagree well.
Hmm.
Right, because it's completely unrealistic to think I'm just going to find some group of people in which I agree with them on everything. Like
Right.
that's never going to happen. And
Yeah,
that
no,
shouldn't happen, right?
no, exactly.
You wouldn't grow and learn if that was the case. And so it's just I go out now actively seeking people who can disagree well. And I think maybe that's also kind of part of my motivation for maybe sometimes not directly intentionally, but winding up being divisive on
Hmm.
Facebook, because I'm like trying to find people that can handle difficult conversations,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
definitely agree with that.
so, yeah. So I don't know if it's gotten better or worse. It's hard to say. I feel like maybe it's gotten a little better, but maybe that's just because the people that were so mad at me just, already blocked me on Facebook, so I don't see them anymore.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that.
I don't know.
So I guess this will be a little bit of a merge of the kind of two topics we've talked about. The metaverse. What are your kind of feelings on the metaverse? I feel like part of me thinks the metaverse could be a place where we can kind of create a better community that is more accepting, but part of me also thinks like that's more capability of censoring people and kind of like deleting who you don't want to talk to, and making even more division. And then I guess I want to hear your input as someone from the crypto community and a developer, but also as like a parent. Do you think that's something to be of concern for your kids, or the time will come when that happens?
Oh man, we could spend all day talking about that, right?
Yeah, we'll have another session another time. Don't worry.
Yeah. So first of all, I hate that suddenly everyone's talking about the metaverse. Like this wasn't a
Yeah.
thing we mentioned a couple months ago. Now it's everywhere, but it's
I
just this
was
new
I was
term.
mentioning it a couple weeks months ago, but yeah, I
All
agree.
right, good for you. But also they just exploded. And I think it's just kind of a new term for things that I might have referred to is to like Web 3.0, this type of thing.
Right.
So it's the concept of integrating well, first of all, if we think of the metaverse as something Facebook owns, that's very, very dystopian, and I
Right.
think would be quite bad. If we think about the metaverse as something that becomes this decentralized open platform and just a different way to communicate, and it has more of a Web3 sort of vision where you have like, you own your own data, self-sovereign identity sort of stuff, maybe a lot of NFTs, so you can own pieces of the metaverse. If we're looking at that future, I think that's probably pretty good. And I think it's kind of this, will we wind up in a bubble? I think that's always just sort of a question of personal development, whether or not someone is willing to hear other people out or engage with the world. And so I think humans kind of always have that. That's the human problem. It's just much more apparent now where we really have very good options to join whatever community in the world we want to or not join. So I think it's an existing human problem that becomes much more apparent because we have so many more possibilities now.
Right.
So I don't know. I hope that, it'll be something that like when you're 15, when you're 20, when you're 25, you live in a little bubble. And then as you get older, you're like, hey, there are other people that know other things and maybe I should talk to them too. And then you come out of your bubble. I don't know. We'll see.
How do you, if you at all, expose your children to like these types of issues, or like, how do you talk to them about that type of stuff?
Yeah, and this is interesting too. My kids now are 10 and 8.
Yeah.
And they're very, very into online stuff. They play with all their, because they have a ton of friends in Chicago and cousins, and now they're in Puerto Rico. So they're always online playing Roblox is the popular one at the moment, playing Roblox
Right.
with their friends. And, I was younger, I guess I was never into video games. It's always like, I don't think that's good for people. I'm not going to let my kids do that. And then now that I'm here, I'm like, no, this is a great thing for them to be doing. They're getting really creative. They like make little videos with their friends. They've learned photo editing and video editing. They're interacting with people. They're making new friends. So in general, I think it's a good idea to encourage your children to just go after whatever it is that interests them, because they'll find, they'll learn skills, they'll get creative. When it comes to the more difficult part of things, my general philosophy is when they're old enough to ask the question, they're old enough to hear the answer, right? So
like
if
that.
they run across some problem or some issue and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, oh, this happened today while I was playing this game. And I'm like, okay, now that's the right time to talk about this. When you can. Sometimes they're just, like you go on, my daughter wanted to make YouTube videos and I'm like, you can't mention your address, you can't mention your last name, like there's sometimes there's safety issues where before they ask, you just have to be like, here are the rules and this is why.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can
whenever
only
possible, I try and just let, like, you just want them to go learn how to do things and learn how to interact with the world. And so you just kind of try and support them in the direction they want to go. And
Yeah. Have they enjoyed the transition to Puerto Rico? Has that been any different for them? Or I guess with online communities, they probably don't see much of a difference.
I think it has been a big difference for them, but in all, I think it's going pretty well. And I know because it's, kids sometimes they try and get out of school. Oh, I'm too tired today. Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And I think they're liking their new school better because there's much less of stomach aches in the morning. So
Nice. That's good.
I think it's going well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I guess to get towards the end of our podcast show, I've noticed you're getting into some more hobbies lately. So one of them was interior decorating. What was I guess similarly, I've been trying to get into more hobbies. I feel like they're just good to spend time with, not just working all the time and thinking about work. Is what made you get into the hobbies? Is it something you realized you just needed? Did you think like that's going to kind of help you just be like happier? Does that help you be healthier? Was it just time to do that, or it naturally happened?
Kind of all of the above, but
All right.
unfortunately, I think what happened is, once lockdown hit in, early 2020, I
Mhm.
think it kind of went into like not really emergency mode because it wasn't any direct, immediate sort of, but you're kind of like on guard. You go and just I have to do this, I have to do that. Like all of the
Mhm.
fun got sort of dropped from
Right.
your life. I think that happened to quite a few people. And I think, unfortunately, I didn't do the best job of like catching that and dealing with that. And then I hit some really bad burnout, like at the beginning of this year, and just reached like a breaking point there. And then things kind of, it's sort of the way things work. Things crash and then you have to like put them back together. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to have some sort of venue in my life. Like I need to shake it up a bit. I need to do something different. There's something really like healing's not the right word. There's something really like, I don't know, good for you about like consciously crafting your environment, you
Hmm.
know? And also, I think it was just an interesting stretch for me because I'm such a tech nerd. I've never really engaged in any sort of creative endeavor. And so taking on something like we sold all our stuff in Chicago and moved to Puerto Rico and got whole new things. And like, I'm going to decorate a whole house. It's like a hideously daunting task, but it was also really fun because it's
Yep.
just like, I think it is kind of like you have to break out of your old patterns. And so you try something different. And then it wound up being really, really, I think, good for me to consciously craft my environment, and to just try something totally different,
Yeah.
and
And
it expands your brain,
there's
you know?
another hobby I think you did recently. What was it? I feel like I saw you doing something
Oh,
craft
I've been painting a
painting.
decoration, which is going to go on the wall.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I'm not sure how it's going. I don't know if I like it, but I'm having a really good time doing it. So,
Nice. There we go.
we'll see how it
Anything else?
goes.
Anything else on the list of hobbies that you're trying to like explore and do? I feel like just moving to Puerto Rico, there's probably a lot more outdoor activities that you could possibly do. Or
Oh, so I have a hobby lined up for the future, which I
all
don't
right,
have the time to dive into just yet. But there's this really beautiful mountain range out here called El Yunque, like this
uh,
forest in the
the
mountains.
rainforest.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And I've been daydreaming about buying a big plot of land out in El Yunque and building like an off-grid eco resort. Like
I'm
that would be
coming when
so
you do
freaking
that.
cool.
That
Yes.
would be awesome. I've been to Puerto Rico twice, and I think El Yunque is my favorite part of the island. I absolutely love it.
It's just so calming and peaceful and beautiful and just I love the place. Yeah.
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 Have you been to Ponce yet? That's
Ponce, is
the
that one that's out on the west side of the island?
like the southwest, I believe. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, that's on the south end. No, my husband went there last week and said it was really gorgeous. Like it was just a beautiful town. So we might try and I haven't been there yet. We've been out to Rincon, we've been to El Yunque, Caguas, but I haven't gotten out to Ponce yet, but soon. Yeah.
Nice. Well, good stuff. I think that about wraps it for this conversation. I think I definitely want to talk to you again in the future. There's a lot of other topics we could definitely delve further into. Do you have any closing statements before we wrap this up?
No, no, just say thank you for the good conversation. Real human connection is so rare lately.
Yeah,
So
and
nice to have a real conversation.
I'm gonna start posting a link to this episode on Threads where people start bashing you and say she's actually a pretty nice person. She's not as horrible as you guys all make it seem.
I try to be a good person. I don't know.
No, you are. People are just crazy on the internet. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. It was a great conversation, and hopefully you have a great December and holiday.
Thank you. You too.
All right.